If you can imagine for a second going back in time to that moment she pulled away, you felt the anxiety creep up in your stomach as it just makes its way to your heart. Maybe your hands were shaking, your breath came short. Now pause. If you can go back to that moment in time and put your new self now into your mind then, how would you choose to respond? What would you do? What if I told you that if you chose to remain silent and just say one thing, you would have changed the whole course of your marriage and where it's at right now? Now you have the ability to always be that man, to get her to change her story about you, about what she wants in her heart, to be with you again, despite what she has said to you. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to lay out an advanced concept to master with yourself that will ascend you to a higher level of consciousness, growth, and self-mastery. I have to give a huge warning. This concept is so advanced that by grasping it, you will cut the time it takes to win her back, at least by half. But by doing so, your wife will not only notice the difference and changes in yourself, to feel automatically also compelled to find excuses to be around you more. She will naturally become more curious about these changes, and divorce will just stop in its tracks. Let's jump into the first concept, which is the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Let's start with this quote. God brings men into deep waters, not to drown them, but to cleanse them. James Augie. Why do you suffer? What is the reason for your pain? Now look, I'm going to be honest with you. I had the hardest year of my life this last year. One of the hardest years. I moved to a city in Seattle where I was pretty isolated. And the weather there is not the best, especially compared to San Diego where I was the past 10 years. I also went through some other difficult life experiences that made me realize I was trying to live a life that wasn't my own design. I leaned into work so much because it was the only area where I felt significant. Does that sound familiar? These outside influences and life experiences put a lot of stress in my relationship. And I'm not perfect, I never claimed to be, but I was lost and in a pretty dark place. Like, I'm still gaining perspective on that time because it was so recent. But it got me to reflect on the idea of pain and complacency and how we can just lose our way. Because before that year, it was the best 10 years of my life here in San Diego. I know for myself, every dark period of my life caused me to slow down and reflect on how I got there, to learn more on lessons about myself. We often don't take the time to look inside of ourselves until we get broken. There's cracks that form that allow us to peer inside the void of our empty minds. And this is how we grow from our suffering, the ones that examine their life and use pain as a vehicle for that growth. C.S. Lewis, who was a British writer, scholar, and Christian apologist, best known for his works in fiction, he authored the Chronicles of Narnia, by the way, which I just found out, beloved series. He said, "We can rest contently in our sins and in our stupidities. And anyone who has watched gluttons shoveling down the most exquisite food as if they did not know what they were eating will admit that we can ignore even pleasure. But pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks to us in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world." If you fail to understand the reason for your pain and the source of why it is there, it will repeat again. Now let's go over 3 ways to overcome this pain. The first is to be like water, my friend.
This is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
I love that analogy and how you just become fluid. You just are able to adapt and mold to the right situations. Because when we can't change a situation, we have to change ourselves, as Viktor Frankl says. Because this is such an advanced concept, I'm gonna try my best to give you practical application. When it means to be like water, I'll tell you a personal story. I've only had one panic attack in my life. If you ever experienced one, your body's having a physical reaction. You are when you just have anxiety as well, whether your hands are shaking, stomach is churning, but in that moment, I felt like I couldn't breathe. My throat was clencing up. And this may seem crazy, but I just heard a voice in that moment when thought I was gonna die, and it said, "Let go, just let me die." And as soon as I stopped fighting it and just let it happen, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna die, bliss, peace washed over me, and I felt okay. Now this story highlights the idea of accepting what is. You see, right now, she is being the way she's being, okay? And to you, it's almost better that she does pass away because she's being a different person. It's like you don't even know, like same body, but just like that's not the woman that you fell in love with, and I understand that. How much control do you have over that? You have influence, but the greatest way to influence that is for you to be good. And the best way for you to be good starts with not controlling her, accepting what is, accepting why she is doing what she is doing, not fighting against, not saying, this isn't the woman that I married, this isn't the woman that I fell in love with, she's saying this, doing that. Like, when your focus is outward on things and people you cannot control, that's what creates the anxiety, the stress, the worry, the hopelessness, the man that she is rejecting. You must not fight against the river. One of the greatest influences in my life, Alan Watts. Well, let me show you this quote.
It always slips through the net, and in water, you know, when you get into it, there's nothing to hang on to. All this universe is like water. It is fluid, it is transient, it is changing. And when you're thrown into the water after being accustomed to living on the dry land, you're not used to the idea of swimming, you try to stand on the water, you try to catch hold of it, and as a result, you drown. The only way to survive in the water, and this refers particularly to the waters of modern philosophical confusion, where God is dead, metaphysical propositions are meaningless, and there's really nothing to hang on to, because we're all just falling apart. And the only thing to do under those circumstances is to learn how to swim. And to swim, you relax. You let go, you give yourself to the water, and you have to know how to breathe in the right way. And then you find that the water holds you up. Indeed, in a certain way, you become the water.
To really hammer this conceptual idea home for you, I'm going to give you another example. I was running the group call a couple weeks ago, and, well, I'll just show you what this man said.
I just felt her pain. I really felt her pain. And I just leaned in, just held her in my arms, gave her a hug, and we just held tight. We held on tight, both of us. Didn't want to let go. And then I broke that moment of silence with, I just said, the only thing I said really was, I love you and I'm here for you.
As much as he was struggling and in pain, you can see the way he was dealing with it show the type of man that he was. I had goosebumps listening to him. I felt so inspired. I know everyone else in the group did too. It's not easy to get there. There's more concepts I'm going to help you with in this video on how to, but you must start here understanding that this is the path to be able to not force things with her, to let go, to accept what is happening, because that's when the pain washes away. So the question remains, how do we get into this state practically? That's what this next point will tell you. This third principle is called Hermetic Polarity. The wound is the place where the light enters you. Now, the Kybalion was written by 3 individuals under the pseudonym The Three Initiates. It was first published in 1908 in the United States. The true identities of the authors have never been fully confirmed, though it is widely believed that William Walker Atkinson, a prominent figure in the New Thought movement, was the primary author. Atkinson was a prolific writer on esoteric and metaphysical subjects. And one of the core tenets in the book, The Kybalion, is known as the law of polarity. Now, to sum it up, here it is. Everything in life is on a spectrum or a pole. And by changing the vibrational frequency, you change its state. For example, you have hot, things are moving faster to atoms. You have cold, things are more stable. You have long into short, masculine into feminine. Now, with this concept, let's practically apply it to your life with personal growth and transformation. For emotional mastery, if you're feeling overwhelmed with anger, sadness, anxiety, the principle teaches that you can change your state by consciously focusing on its opposite. Since these are just degrees on a spectrum, you can elevate your emotional state. For example, move anger towards calmness or fear towards courage. All you do is focus on what you want versus what you don't want. I used to be a dating coach in a previous life, and this is one of the principles I would tell these guys when they would first walk up to a woman they're interested in. The guys who had a lot of anxiety, they were afraid of getting rejected. They were focused on, what if she rejects me? What if she says she has a boyfriend? What if she just flat out ignores me? I said, look, consciously focus on what you can gain from the interaction, what you can give. And by just shifting that alone, they showed up completely differently. And right now with your wife, you are focusing on the fear. What if she abandons me? What if she sees another guy? What if she is seeing another guy? What if this? What if that? What if this? It's all fear. Instead, if you focus on what you want, that one quality alone, I'm telling every man that has saved his marriage, you watch all the reviews on the reviews channel, you will see that one common trait. They focus on what they want more than the fear that was pulling them downward. Now, if you are stuck in fear, one of the best ways to get out of that state and use the Hermetic principle is to see a proven game plan that works. This is what the free marriage evaluation call that we offer you with our marriage evaluators will give you. If you want that resource, click the link down below, set up a call with our team, and make sure you're fully committed and ready to invest in yourself to win her back. Let's jump into the last principle, which is called the shift method. The S in this method is to see the polarity first. Recognize that every negative situation contains its opposite. There is always a potential for a positive aspect. This aligns with the Hermetic principle of the law of polarity, which states that opposites are the same. The action here is to ask yourself, what is the opposite of this negative experience? The H stands for hold, space, or emotion. You need to fully experience and acknowledge your negative emotions without suppressing them. Otherwise, they will grow within you and pull you downward, okay? Accept that they are a part of the process of transformation. So the action here is to allow yourself to feel the discomfort. Don't avoid, don't distract yourself. Journal, okay? Learn how to meditate. Just sit with it and it'll go away. Again, this is a skill that must be developed over time. The I stands for identify the lesson. Okay, now every negative event comes with a lesson. God is speaking to you through the pain, remember? It's an insight waiting to be uncovered. By identifying the lesson, you start to shift toward the positive pole of the experience. The action here is to reflect on the situation by asking, what is this teaching me about myself, about her, about others, about my marriage, about life? What can I learn? What can I gain from this? For example, going through a painful breakup. It might teach you to have self-reliance and emotional growth and intelligence. The F stands for focus on the positive polarity. Now after this, shift your focus from the negative aspect to the positive. The Hermetic law of polarity teaches that by changing your focus of your perspective, you move from one pole to the other. I'm repeating this because it must stick with you in your head. So the action here, begin to mentally and emotionally invest in the positive outcome. Visualize what the opposite pole looks like to you. What will life be like when you learn this lesson and embrace the growth? The final step is T for transformative action. Now that you've shifted your mindset, take action that aligns with the positive side of the experience. Taking action reinforces the shift in polarity. Identify 1 or 2 tangible steps that you can take to solidify your growth. This could be setting a new goal, adopting a new habit, setting a new boundary with her. Use fear as your compass. What are you afraid to do, but you know that is best to do? Now let's play this shift perspective. Let's put it all into an event. Let's say for the negative event, a man feels afraid and worried because his wife is going out of town for the weekend, but won't tell him where she is going or why. A lot of guys have dealt with this. So let's see the polarity. Well, the fear and worry is what he's experiencing. That's represented by one pole, but the opposite pole could be trust and independence. This man needs to recognize that the situation can be an opportunity to build trust in himself and in the relationship, especially if it's difficult. So for the H, holding space for the emotion. The man needs to sit there with that worry, with that anxiety, play it out, let him catastrophize all he wants, and then recognize he's gonna be okay. He'll live, he'll survive. He'll sit through the discomfort and it is making him stronger. As much as he wants to go crazy, eventually, just like with my story of the anxiety, as soon as he lets go, it'll pass. Now, for the I of identifying the lesson, the situation might be teaching him something about his own insecurities or control issues. It can also present an opportunity to strengthen the trust in the relationship. He could ask himself, what does this situation reveal about my need for control or my fears of being left out? For the F of focusing on the positive polarity, instead of focusing on the fear of what might happen, where his wife is, who she's with, what she's doing, right? He can consider how giving his wife space and respecting her independence, what that could do is that can strengthen their connection in the long term, make her feel autonomy. He doesn't need her, and she feels safer. Visualize the growth and mutual respect that can come from it. Now, the last step he could do with a transformative action is he could choose to have an open conversation with her after she returns, calmly expressing his feelings without demanding answers, right? He might also decide to focus on his own activities or personal growth over the weekend to ease his mind and give her the space she needs. Taking proactive, positive steps will reinforce the shift from fear to trust. This is one of my favorite practical videos on exact words you could say and steps you could take to make her feel emotionally safe, because your wife needs that from you right now. So watch that video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.